3 years, countless sleepless nights, and every cent I possessed, all sunk into a house never destined to be mine. The moment I realized how foolish I'd been, a cold shock washed over me. All this time, scrimping and saving every penny, sacrificing vacations, luxuries, even simple joys, bound by the naive dream of a shared future under a roof that, as it turned out, had never really been ours. I'd trusted her mother, blind to the legal cobweb that had been spun right under my nose. Her reassurances, the affectionate smiles, the promises whispered in the quiet moments. We were building a life, building a legacy, weren't we? But here I am, standing on the precipice of betrayal, the ground crumbling beneath my feet. There's a taunting irony in it all, because deep down, despite the bitterness, there's the soft whisper of possibility that things might still be set right. Yet, when you're trapped in such a profound deceit, the echoes of hope sound more like a cruel joke. My heart pounds with resentment, betrayal, and a twisted flicker of desperation. The house was silent, save for the occasional groan of floorboards settling under the weight of the night. The moonlight streamed through the kitchen window, painting ghostly patterns across the tiled floor as I stood there, heart racing, staring at the old filing cabinet, my Pandora's box. I hadn't intended for this sleepless night to spirally turn into an excavation of our financial past. Yet here I was, almost felt pulled by an invisible thread. Each drawer slid open with a reluctant creak, their contents clattering slightly as my trembling hands sifted through the papers. Bills, tax returns, those predictable papers we shuffled and shifted but never really looked at, until now. My eyes scanned hastily, almost hungrily, aching for confirmation, begging for betrayal to be nothing more than a paranoid mind game. But with every envelope tossed aside, the prickling unease gnawing at the base of my skull intensified, whispering that something more sinister was at play. Finally, at the very back of the deepest drawer, my fingers brushed against the telltale slip of paper, the deed to the house. This document was supposed to represent our future, our shared dreams, locked together in one shared goal. I tugged it out, the paper crackling under my grip, and held it up towards the beam of fragmented silver light. I held the deed like a hot coal, my hands shaking. Her mom's name glared back at me, cold and definitive. The room seemed to shrink around me, the air thickening, my breath coming shallow. The world tilted dangerously on its axis. Her mother's name. Her mother. Possessing everything that I had sacrificed for, everything I had poured my dreams and finances into. I thought back to every conversation, every momentary hesitance that reflected behind her eyes as she told me, "It's going to be ours." My fists clenched, muscles tensing as the magnitude hit. I sank into a chair, the cool wood pressing through the thin fabric of my pajama pants. Betrayal tasted bitter and metallic, coating my tongue, crawling down my throat, settling like lead in my gut. My mind cycled through the time, the trust, the love. Flickers of her smiles, late-night conversations about our future, plans we whispered under blankets. My insides tangled with anger, sadness, disbelief, a twisted cocktail refusing to be disentangled. The air around me buzzed with an electric charge, almost as if every atom was reacting to the seismic shift in my reality. How blind had I been to not see it? To trust so completely without hesitation? I stared at that paper until the letters burned into my consciousness, the sharp edges of betrayal cutting deep. And with a sweep of my hand, the papers flew across the table, scattering, the sound echoing like muted fireworks in the oppressive quietness. I leaned back, feeling the sting of tears welling, not just from betrayal but the loss of the life I thought we were building. In that moment, a single thought crystallized. This was not the end, but the beginning of something I couldn't yet name. The morning light filtered through the blinds, striping the kitchen table with bars of gold. Each droplet of sunlight seemed to pulse with the tension that simmered just beneath my skin. I watched as she poured cereal into a bowl, the clattering sound piercing the silence. Her every motion was unhurried, as though she was merely acting out a role written long before I arrived. The clink of the spoon against porcelain rang in my ears, syncing perfectly with my heartbeat, too fast and spiraling. There she was, across the table, every inch of her familiar, every detail suddenly foreign. The kitchen felt too small, suffocating as I swallowed the thick knot in my throat. I couldn't hold it back any longer. Why didn't you tell me? The words slipped out, a trembling whisper fighting through the heaviness in my chest. I didn't recognize my own voice, cracked, fragile, alien. It was almost as if someone else had spoken. She paused, not even bothering to set down the spoon. The milk trembled, almost elegantly, on its surface as if mocking the chaos in my head. Her eyes met mine with a calmness that felt like a slap. Cool, unyielding, like a winter sunrise over a frozen lake. I didn't think it mattered, she said, her tone as neutral as if she were commenting on the weather. The words landed heavy between us, a weight I couldn't bear. Didn't matter? I echoed, bewildered. How could she not see it? My world teetering on the precipice of collapse, while she remained untouched by the storm. She shrugged as if throwing my turmoil off her shoulders. Things were already. She paused, scanning for the right lie. Complicated. I clenched my fists beneath the table, knuckles white and aching with the effort to hold back an eruption. I wanted to reach across, shake her by the shoulders and demand to see that this mattered, that I mattered. But my hands stayed, rooted in place by the chill of disbelief. Complicated. I leaned forward, pushing every syllable through gritted teeth, barely containing the wrath that churned within. We're not pieces on a board you can rearrange when things get complicated. Her eyes flicked to me, surprise flickering across her impassive facade. Just a flicker, then back to that infuriating calm. I thought it was best, she continued, the nonchalance in her voice twisting the knife further. For both of us. The room seemed to pulse with my frustration and helplessness, each word a fresh cut. The enormity of the deception sat between us, a third entity in the room, and there was no pathway around it. My stomach churned with too many emotions, betrayal, anger, the sharp sting of her indifference. The air was thick with unsaid arguments and the impossibility of forgiveness. Her gaze shifted back to her untouched cereal, dismissing or perhaps denying the confrontation entirely. That basic, mundane action, the tap of the spoon one final time, signaled the unbearable truth. The chasm between us had grown too wide to bridge. And there I sat, on the edge, unsure if I even wanted to cross anymore. The room is silent, save for the rhythmic tick of the clock, a heartbeat echoing in the quiet. I sit on the edge of our bed, my fingers tracing the outline of the quilt. Each stitch feels like a small betrayal. I thought I knew what this quilt meant, the comfort it once provided, the nights spent cocooned together under its warmth. Now, it's just fabric, nothing more. I close my eyes and let the memories rush in, unbidden but relentless. They start softly, with the scent of freshly brewed coffee blending into the morning sunlight that slipped through our curtains. I can almost see it again, the way her hair shone golden in the morning light, that effortless grace she brought to everything. Each morning, the warmth of her smile was my fuel. How foolishly I believed in those moments. In my mind, we're laughing again, something stupid I'd said, or maybe it was the way she danced, uninhibited, when her favorite song came on. How could I not have noticed the cracks beneath her laughter? Did I choose to ignore them, desperate to keep the fantasy alive? Every stolen glance feels tainted now. Each shared silence a screaming question left unanswered. We're at the park. I'm holding her hand. I feel the echo of that touch, a tactile memory that haunts my skin. We used to walk for hours, talking about everything and nothing, as if the world existed just for us. It was a dance, our voices weaving stories of dreams and promises. But somewhere along the path, weeds of deceit must have taken root, unseen and insidious. I remember the small things that seemed insignificant then, like the distant look in her eyes when she thought I wasn't watching. Did her silences carry burdens I never cared to lighten? The way she'd brush them off with a practiced smile, convincing me, and perhaps herself, that everything was fine. The sweet tea we once shared tastes bitter now, the sugar dissolved into a pool of regret swirling at the bottom of the cup. Blinking away the ghosts, I glanced back at the quilt. How many nights intertwined beneath it, every touch supposedly intimate, now feel more like a stranger's embrace. It's the cruel sorcery of hindsight, revealing the harsh daylight behind the moonlit dreams I clung to for too long. I questioned every moment, real or imagined, truth or deceit. The boundaries of our life blur into this murky sea of doubt. The air grows heavy in the room, pressing against my chest as I draw a breath, shallow and tentative. But I can't stay here, anchored to what once was. I rise, trying to shake off the memories that cling like shadows, refusing to let go. There's a journey ahead, and I owe it to myself to find where the truth lies. You've been duped, man. She's played you, my buddy declares, igniting a fresh flame of anger within me. The words hiss through my mind, wrapping tightly around my nerves like venomous vines. I'm seated on the edge of my bed, knees pulled up, phone screen a stark white glare in my eyes. Around me, the room feels like it's closing in, walls whispering secrets I can't quite catch. I scroll through more messages, each ping a new slap of emotional chaos. Emily's in green. You need to talk it out. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Her optimism is like cotton candy, too sweet and disintegrating under the weight of what I now know. Flashes of our laughter, those late-night talks, hit me like echoes of a ghost haunting my present. You've got to confront her, John insists with the urgency of someone who has never fumbled over his words. But confrontation feels like standing at the edge of a cliff. I imagine her eyes, wide and teary, pleading innocence, twisting my resolve into something brittle and fragile. There's a snort from another friend's name, Mark. You should cut her off. Move on, dude. You're better than getting walked over. His bluntness leaves cracks in my stoic facade, giving anger a place to seep through, boiling just beneath the skin. The idea of simply cutting ties sends shudders down my spine, like sawing off a limb. A sardonic chuckle escapes me. Each text competes for space inside my head, demanding attention like children vying for a parent's exhausted love. My breath comes shallow, heart a thrift store metronome, irregular and worn. The air is stale, tinged with leftover pizza and faded cologne, a reminder of happier, simpler nights. Listen, Sarah's message blinks to life, a small beacon of tenderness. Take a step back. You need clarity, not chaos. I'm here if you want to talk. Her words are a balm, a whisper of sanity against the cacophony. Tears sting my eyes, and I let them blur my vision, briefly imagining the release if I could just believe any of them. The phone feels heavy, an anchor tethering me to indecision. My thumb hovers for a heartbeat, then clicks off the screen. Silence envelopes me, thicker than the quilt puddled at my feet, as if waiting for me to make sense of the mess. All these voices, a symphony of concern and judgment, echo in the confines of my skull, but the conductor is absent. A moment passes, stretched thin by indecision. Then a thought strikes like lightning. Maybe there are no answers, only choices. I'm caught in this storm, and every word from my friends is a rain-soaked path diverging into the gray unknown. Taking a slow, measured breath, I stand, feeling the tension pull my muscles taut. My phone buzzes again, but I silence it, lungs filling with resolve. Perhaps it's time I stop listening and decide. The noise within sparking a new kind of purpose in that silence. The waiting room is suffocatingly quiet. The smell of fresh paint clings to the air like something trying too hard to be new amidst the weight of deep-rooted histories that pass through here. My heart feels like it's trying to beat its way out of my chest as I sit on the edge of the plush, yet rigid, chair. When the lawyer finally gestures me inside, the room is smaller than I imagined, a fortress of oak bookshelves and thick carpets. Each step forward feels like an encroachment. He sits behind a massive desk, bland dark suit, wire-rimmed glasses, and a tie just a shade too bright. There's no easy fix here. You must understand that, he says, and his gaze is steady, empathetic yet firm. His words crash into me like frigid ocean waves, pulling me under. I blink against their chill, my hands clenched into fists on my lap. Isn't there something we can do? My voice trembles slightly, betraying me, betraying how exposed I feel. The room feels colder now, or maybe it's just my sweat-soaked skin reacting to the lawyer's unyielding gaze. He leans back, hands steepled thoughtfully beneath his chin. The legal system is complex, he says, slow and deliberate. Justice isn't always as straightforward as we hope, especially when he trails off, the words he's left unsaid hanging between us, like intangible borders, just as effective at keeping me from what I need. From justice, from peace. I flinch slightly, as if I can already feel their heavy presence smothering me. My mind races, each thought flashing quicker than the last, each a painful reminder of where I am, of what I am facing. I want to claw at the injustice, rail against it, but instead, I am tethered, held in this space by the thick, binding ropes of reality. What about? I start, my words fumbling in the vastness of my own desperation. But even as I begin, the sharp look in his eye cuts me off. He's not unkind, but there's caution there, as though he needs to manage my expectations before they spiral out into something he can't fix. Legal battles, he continues, speaking as if I'm not already suffocating under the nightmare of it all. They're lengthy, unpredictable, costly. I need you to be prepared for that. And that's the moment. His words are like the last lock clicking into place. The room closes in around me, walls pressing down tighter and tighter. There's no escaping the vast, yawning chasm of the truth he's laid bare. I nod slowly, as if acknowledging a reality I've long feared but never allowed myself to fully acknowledge. My shoulders slump, the fight leaching out of me as I succumb to gravity, to inevitability. His phone rings, cutting through the tension like a serrated blade. I excuse myself, offering a weak nod in gratitude or maybe just submission, and stumble back into the hallway. The weight of the lawyer's words, the weight of impossibility, settle into the marrow of my bones. Outside, the world spins on, blissfully oblivious to the battles we wage within ourselves. I sat on the living room floor, the walls closing in, the silence deafening and oppressive. The weight of betrayal hung heavy in the air, thick like a fog that wouldn't lift. There was a pile of unopened bills beside me, each one a reminder of shattered trust, and I couldn't bring myself to touch them. They felt like small, paper cuts in the fabric of a life I thought was real, illusions held together by lies I didn't see unraveling. The room, once a refuge, now felt strange and foreign. The familiar contours of the couch, the soft carpet underfoot, everything was tainted with the memory of my naivete. I could hear the tick of the clock, each second passing like a heartbeat counting down to something I was too afraid to face. I wrapped my arms around my knees, trying to hold on to something, anything, even if it was just the outline of myself. In the corners of my mind, scenarios played out in harsh, blinding flashes. I saw the look on their face, the one I loved, or thought I did, painted with a veneer of guilt they had tried to hide. I remembered every promise whispered late into the night, every touch that now felt like a phantom preying on my skin. All those moments scattered like ashes, left to drift across the barren plain of my heart. Why didn't I see it? The words scratched at my throat, barely more than a whisper, barely real. They echoed through the empty rooms like a question with no answer. I pressed my back against the cool plaster, letting it ground me, let it remind me that I was still here, breathing even when every part of me wanted to scream. Shadows stretched across the floor, creeping closer as the light outside faded. Darkness was a comfort, a blanket to cloak my raw nerves. I closed my eyes, imagining what it would be like to disappear into it, to abandon everything that hurt. But the images in my head were relentless, sharpening in the absence of sight. Their face, their betrayals, their lies, all twisted around every thought of peace I tried to find. I could hear a distant hum, a car passing by, or maybe it was just in my head. What was real now? The boundaries of truth felt blurred, as though I was grasping at smoke. If only I could peel back the layers of deceit wrapped around me, find the person I was before it all fell apart. The sound of my own breath filled the room, ragged and uneven. I exhaled, long and deliberate, feeling some small release even as tension curled back around my chest. I knew I was close to the edge, closer than I wanted to admit. But there was still a part of me, buried beneath the hurt, that whispered not to let go, not yet. The fight hadn't left me, though it simmered dim beneath the surface. And so, I sat there, surrounded by my own shadows, waiting for the dawn. The air was thick with unsaid words, the kind that haunt spaces, making them feel cramped even in the emptiest rooms. She stood there, arms crossed, a defensive shield against my worn-out probing. The room felt smaller with each passing moment, our shadows cast longer by the fading light outside. She finally looked up, her eyes meeting mine for the first time in what felt like hours, and there was something in that glance, relief mingled with resignation. "I'm sorry you feel that way," she murmured, her voice carrying a hollow ring, like the echo of something long dead. Each word landed with weight, a slow surgeon's cut revealing my heart laid bare. It was more of a punctuation than a statement, as if checking off a box on a form labeled emotional duties. My mind raced, caught in a turbulent cycle of disbelief and raw anger. How could she not see? How could she brush it off like lint on a shirt? I shifted in my seat, feeling the leather stick to the backs of my thighs, a gross whisper of discomfort that matched my mood. Is that really all you have to say? I asked, or perhaps I pleaded, my voice barely above a murmur. There was a tremor there, a quiver that betrayed the veneer of control I desperately tried to maintain. She shrugged, a nonchalant roll of the shoulders that screamed indifference, amplified by the silence around us. The room held its breath, waiting for me to fill the void, but the words hung in my throat, caught by the barb of disbelief. My mind flashed through memories, moments when words were not needed, where silence spoke volumes between us. Those days felt distant now, as if living in another dimension unfathomable and unreachable from this stark, emotionless plane. It's not that simple, she finally responded, her voice sharper this time, cutting through the quiet like a blade. There was a flicker of something, regret, maybe, smothered quickly by an invisible force that dulled her gaze. I've tried to understand, I've tried to be what you want, but... The sentence trailed off, lost to the ether, leaving a comma hanging in the air where a period should be. Her inadequacy swallowed me whole, and I felt the fracture beneath my feet widen. A rift not just beneath us, but between us, an ever-growing chasm that I could not bridge, no matter how hard I clawed and scrambled. It's not just me, I said, the words spilling out, uncontrolled, like water over a broken dam. This has always been about us. It's always been about us. My reflection in her eyes shimmered, distorted, and I realized that was all we had left. Echoes and shadows, mirrored against our empty selves. Maybe that's where we went wrong. Her words hanging in the air like the scent of rain on hot concrete. Something was irrevocably severed. And in that moment, I realized there was nothing left to mend. I threw my life into suitcases, each item a painful reminder of trust broken beyond repair. The room felt smaller with every passing moment, engulfed by shadows of memories I couldn't bear to revisit. A crumpled photograph lay discarded near the bed, capturing smiles now faded, hollow echoes of the illusions I'd clung to. My hand trembled as I picked it up, the edges worn from being handled too often in moments of desperate hope. The air was thick with the scent of my own desperation, an invisible fog wrapping tightly around me. Each breath felt like I was inhaling shards of the past. The fabric of my clothes, the texture of the carpet beneath my bare feet, all conspired to remind me of what once was, and what could never be again. Pack only what you need, I whispered to myself, a mantra against the tide of doubt threatening to pull me back. The dull thud of my heart kept beat alongside the quiet rustle of clothing, the metallic clink of zippers, the silent symphony of escaping the life I knew. There was a finality in the sound that left me raw, bleeding from wounds invisible to the naked eye. I placed the photograph gingerly on top of the clothes, tenderly closing the lid on that chapter of my existence. The suitcase snapped shut with a decisive click, echoing louder than I anticipated in the void of our now silent room. I could feel the weight of my decision pressing down on my shoulders, relentless and unforgiving. Every step towards the door felt like moving through thick, unyielding molasses. Light pooled on the floor just beyond the threshold, promising something different, something freer, if only I could summon the courage to cross it. A life once filled with shared dreams now felt eerily solitary. My mind replayed every lie, every broken promise, a relentless loop that gnawed at my resolve, asking the same ugly questions over and over. Was leaving the answer, or just another form of defeat? I paused, my hand gripping the cool metal of the door handle. In that suspended moment, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. Eyes older, weary from the struggle of each faltering step towards acceptance. I searched for certainty, for validation in the woman staring back at me. A sound from the street below, laughter, free and untethered, pierced the stillness, igniting a flicker of yearning in my chest. The world moved on, indifferent to my turmoil, the clock relentlessly ticking forward. That sound, so simple, resonated with something deep within me, whispering promises of new beginnings if I dared to venture outside this self-made cage. With a deep breath, I turned the handle, the door swinging open to embrace the unknown. The evening air clings to me, a cool whisper against my skin as I hover on the threshold. There it is, the house, a silhouette against the dying light, familiar yet distant. I clutch the doorframe like it's the edge of a dream I no longer recognize. It's funny, the way shadows stretch at this hour, painting everything in softer lines, even the jagged ruins of what was once my life. I can smell the old wood and fresh regret mingling, a scent etched forever into my memory, and I stand there, allowing the weight of it all to seep in. Each breath is a tug of war, inhaling resilience, exhaling sorrow. There's a trembling inside me, a quivering ache that echoes with every creak of the floorboards that once hummed with laughter and hope. To my left, a window slightly ajar, the lace curtains whispering secrets I no longer want to hear. It's quiet now, barren, the space no longer holding us but standing witness to the wreckage left behind. I let my fingers drift along the frame. A tactile farewell, the wood beneath my touch as cold and firm as the realization I face. The walls, they no longer grip me back. They're letting go, pushing me away like a child sent off reluctantly to the harshness of reality. I take a step back, feeling the change, the shift. There is a loosening inside me, the tight coil of betrayal slowly unraveling with each soft, measured breath, with every backward glance at rooms I once thought would shelter us from the world's unyielding storms. Now they're just empty shells, echoes of dreams folded neatly away. With one final glance, I turn and walk into the night, each step carrying a whisper of goodbye. Behind me, the door gently closes with a muted thud, sealing the past with all its fractured promises. The street stretches ahead, illuminated in a wash of street lights that transform tears into unseen stories. There's a pull in my chest, a sensation heavy yet necessary, the remnants of a painful, explosive adaptability that insists life goes on despite our greatest heartaches. Every footfall feels lighter, the burden I've carried crumbling into the darkened void behind me, piece by piece. In the quiet solitude, I find a fragile spark of resilience flickering where defeat once raged. The cool pavement beneath my feet offers a grounding calm, as if pushing back to remind me of the earth's unyielding steadiness. I glance up, the stars barely visible against the city's glow, yet they promise a light beyond the horizon. This is not the end, I tell myself, a silent vow etched within a heart that dares to heal, to expand once more. So, here I am, stepping forward, leaving what was behind. Each step, a beckoning call toward whatever awaits, toward the life I must now reclaim.